There are moments when the whole world shrinks to a single movement of a hand, 12 seconds, and the entire arena falls silent. One man stands at the free throw line holding the ball with a 1-point lead on the scoreboard. Everyone is watching him. If he makes it, victory. If he misses, shame and failure. And in that moment, he's not just throwing the ball, he's challenging fear, doubt, and the habit of hiding from responsibility. This isn't just a story about basketball. It's a story about how a person behaves when there's no one else to blame. And at the end of this video, we'll break down how to train this ability in yourself, to be the one who takes the shot when everyone else is afraid. There are moments when everything stops, the arena goes silent, thousands of eyes fixed on one person, in his hands, the ball, in his chest, a heart pounding like an engine. On the scoreboard, only a few seconds left, 12 seconds that can define who you truly are. That's exactly the moment Bill Russell, the legendary Boston Celtics center, experienced. Tall, calm, but, as critics said, a terrible free throw shooter. The stats were against him. Logic, too. And when the opponents fouled him on purpose, the arena erupted in a nervous murmur. Everyone expected him to miss. But Russell lifted the ball, made his strange, seemingly awkward move, and scored. Then again, and scored again. The game ended in victory. In those few seconds, he did something much greater than just sinking a free throw. He showed what it means to be the person who takes responsibility. Because in that moment, he had no excuses, no time to blame the refs, no chance to hide behind someone else. All he had was a moment of truth. Either take responsibility for the result or leave it to someone else. And that's where the real philosophy of life begins, because we all stand on our own free throw lines. Some in business, some in relationships, some inside their own minds. And every time life puts us before a choice to act or to wait, to take responsibility or stay silent, we take our shot. And far too often we hide behind excuses. We say, it's not my time, I'm not ready, if only it weren't for these circumstances. But the truth is, we're just afraid, because taking responsibility means standing alone with reality, and that's scary. You know, I often feel like we live in a world trained to avoid responsibility. People want rewards without risk, fame without failure, recognition without effort. We've built a culture where comfort has become more important than duty, and when the moment of choice comes, most take a step back. But it's those who take a step forward who become leaders, not because they're fearless, but because they bring their fear with them. Russell could have said, I'm not the best shooter, let someone else take these free throws. But he didn't, because he understood. A leader isn't the one who's always the most skilled. A leader is the one who's ready to step up. And in that sense, every one of us can be a leader. It doesn't matter if you're running a company, a family, or just your own life. It all starts with the decision to say, I've got this. That's the moment of growing up. As kids, we say, I depend on you. As teens, we scream, I don't need anyone. But true maturity comes when we can say, you can count on me. And maybe that's what our generation is missing, a sense of honor in the words, I'm responsible. Think about it. How many decisions in life do we postpone just because we don't want to deal with the consequences? How many times have we missed a chance waiting for someone else to go first? How many opportunities passed us by because we wanted to be 100% sure before taking action? But life doesn't wait, and time offers no guarantees. See, responsibility isn't a burden, it's an honor. It turns you from a passenger into a captain. It pushes you not just to live, but to lead your life. And even when your shots don't always go in, it's those very attempts that shape your character. Because it's better to miss your own shot than to spend your life watching others shoot. That's why I've always said, responsibility is the price of greatness. It's not just about success, it's about dignity, about maturity, about the willingness to be the one standing on the line when it all comes down to a single moment. And today I want to talk about exactly that, how taking responsibility transforms not just your results, but your very self. Because the moment you start telling yourself, I'm responsible, that's the moment everything begins to change. In this video, I'll show you the 3 levels of responsibility, personal, interpersonal, and life level, and explain how to train them, just like Russell trained his shot. And at the end, we'll do a short practice that will help you feel what it really means to be the person others can count on in your family, in business, and in your own dreams. Because, friends, the world doesn't need just one more talented person. The world needs someone who says, I'll do it, and I won't back down. I often say there's nothing harder than looking in the mirror and honestly saying to yourself, this is my fault. But that's exactly where adult life begins. Not with a passport, not with a job, not with a diploma, but with the moment you stop looking for someone to blame and start looking for solutions. Bill Russell could have done what most people do, find a reason not to step up to the free throw line. I'm not the best shooter, let someone else try. And maybe that would have sounded reasonable, but he didn't look for excuses. He looked for a moment to show who he was, because he understood. Responsibility isn't a burden, it's a stage. And even if you're not ready, sometimes you just have to step under the lights and take your shot. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for us to blame someone else? Well, I couldn't do it because my boss didn't give me a chance. I didn't grow because my parents didn't support me. I didn't make it because the timing, the circumstances, the people weren't right. But let me tell you something my mentor once told me. Excuses are little poisonous seeds that grow into a field of failure. They sound logical, even reasonable, but each one steals a bit of your strength. And as long as we keep planting them, we lose control over our own lives. When I was young, I played that game too. I used to say, if I had a different job, a better economy, a better mentor, I'd already be successful. And one day my teacher, Mr. Showoff, looked at me and said, Jim, if you want things to change, you have to change yourself. It was a simple but brutal truth. The world isn't to blame, not politics, not the market, not the past. If you want a different outcome, start with yourself. And that's exactly what makes responsibility such a great gift. It gives you back control over your own life. Because as long as you're blaming others, you're giving your power to others. But when you say, I'm responsible, you take the wheel back. Look at any area, finances, health, relationships. A person who takes responsibility will always find a way. A person who looks for someone to blame will always find an excuse. Same circumstances, different results, because of a different inner choice. Responsibility also has an interesting property. It grows with practice. The more often you take it on, the stronger you become. It's like a muscle. The first time is hard. The second, a bit easier. The third, it feels natural. And then when life throws you a tough situation, you don't panic anymore. Because you know, I can handle this. I've taken this shot before. Responsibility doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. And growth is the real success, because a person who keeps growing can't truly lose. Even when they fall forward. And here's what I've realized. Life always tests us not when we're ready, but when we're unsure. And it's in those moments that the chance to grow appears. But that chance only comes to those who are ready to say, I won't wait for someone else to do it. I'll do it myself. Remember when Russell stood at the free throw line? He wasn't thinking about percentages or stats. He was thinking about duty, about the team, about honor. And that's why he scored. Not because he was the best shooter, but because he was the most responsible. That's why I say the first step to success isn't action. It's a decision. The decision that from now on, your life is in your hands. And once you make that choice, everything else becomes possible. Yes, responsibility sometimes hurts. It makes you wake up earlier, admit mistakes, work harder than you'd like, but it gives you something nothing else can, self-respect. And that, my friends, is a currency no money can buy. Because when a person looks in the mirror and can say, I didn't betray myself, I did everything I could, that's real victory. So in the first part of our talk, remember this. Personal responsibility isn't a burden, it's a key to freedom, confidence, and inner strength. Because when you accept that everything begins with you, you stop being a victim and start being a creator. And here's the next question we'll try to answer in the second part. How can we transfer that inner responsibility into our relationships with others? How can we become the kind of person others can rely on? That's what we'll talk about next. Responsibility toward others begins with a simple question. Can someone count on me today the same way I want to count on them tomorrow? It sounds simple, but it's a test we take every day. But in the family, in a team, at work, even in a short conversation by the office kitchen. I remember once, after one of my talks, a man came up to me and said, Jim, I want to be a leader. I smiled and replied, how many times this week have you kept the promises you made to others? He looked down. You see, leadership isn't a title. It's the number of promises you've kept, multiplied by honesty. In Russell's game, the whole arena waited for one person's response. But here's the truth. Each of us steps into our own small arena every day. When your child expects you home at exactly 7, when a client counts on your word, when your partner relies on your integrity, and when your team depends on your calm. Responsibility toward others means becoming stability in someone else's storm. It's when your voice says, "You can trust me," and your actions answer, "And I'll prove it." There's one danger: we want to look reliable before we become reliable. But there's no shortcut. Reliability grows from small things. You showed up on time, you planted a seed, you called back as promised, you watered it, you admitted a mistake, you gave it sunlight, and suddenly you notice people around you starting to bloom because being around you feels warmer. That's how responsibility works in relationships. It eases others' anxiety, quiets the noise, and brings clarity. Once my mentor asked me, "Jim, how many people become better just because you walk into the room?" That's a tough question, because sometimes we bring not peace, but our unfinished business, our rush, and our excuses. We demand precision from others, yet call our own lateness circumstances. We expect initiative from the team, yet fail to set the example. Responsibility toward others begins in the mirror. If I want loyalty, do I give it? If I want trust, and do I keep my word? If I want dedication, have people seen me give my all when no one's watching? Let's go back to that free throw line. Why does a team accept someone else's responsibility? Because they see that person take it. Trust isn't born from words, it's born from the habit of showing up when things get tough. In moments of crisis, people don't look for the perfect, they look for the dependable. Not the loudest, but the calmest. Not the ones who know all the answers, but the ones who don't run from the questions. You might not be the best shooter on the team of life, but if you're the first to say, "I'll do it," you'll always have the role of a leader. Now, a nuance. Responsibility toward others doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It's not about pleasing people. It's about clear boundaries, defined agreements, and honest yeses and nos. Here's the paradox. Boundaries make us reliable because others know what they can count on. When you give your word, it's a promise, not a guess. When you say no, that's responsibility too. It preserves trust because you're not promising what you can't deliver. Respect for your own time is respect for others' time. Here's another powerful tool, the habit of recording commitments. For decades, I've kept a journal, and I can tell you the best way not to let others down is to write down what you've promised them. Write the name, the date, the essence of the agreement, and a small plan to fulfill it. Sounds almost silly, right? But it's the simple things that protect your reputation. Each note is insurance against human forgetfulness. Each done mark is another brick in the bridge of trust. And what about mistakes? We'll make them. I have, you have, everyone has. And that's where responsibility toward others has another side, the art of repair. The faster you acknowledge an error and offer a concrete recovery plan, the stronger your relationships become. People don't seek perfection, they seek honesty. Nothing destroys trust like trying to sweep your mistake under the rug of circumstances. And nothing rebuilds it like saying, "It's my mistake, but here's what I'll do to fix it." You know what else I've noticed? When you take responsibility for the mood in the room, the air gets lighter. When you take responsibility for clarity of tasks, people work faster. When you take responsibility for the tone of a conversation, even tough issues get solved more calmly. Leadership is the craft of atmosphere. You don't control everyone, but you set the tone. And tone, that's responsibility too. Now here's a small bridge to our practical part near the end. Choose 3 people who depend on your words this week. One from your family, one from work, and one from your circle of friends. Make one clear promise to each and fulfill it sooner than expected. Not when you get around to it, but first. Then in the evening, write down how you felt. You'll notice something interesting. Responsibility toward others doesn't drain you. It recharges you. It fills you up because your life starts to carry the right kind of weight, the weight of trust. But that's not all. There's a third level without which the first 2 lose their power. Responsibility toward life itself, toward your calling, toward who you must become so that others' lives are better because of your presence. That's what we'll talk about next. Because just as Russell took his shot for the team, we must learn to take the big shots for our own path. And where the stats say, unlikely, character answers, I'm ready. Responsibility toward life begins with a quiet question we rarely dare to say out loud. What is my time given for? Not how much will I earn this month, not how many likes will I get tomorrow, but what exactly am I meant to give this world that it would lack without me? When I first asked myself that question seriously, I realized something simple. Life doesn't sign a contract with us guaranteeing results. It gives us an advance in the form of days and nights, and watches to see whether we'll invest that advance in something meaningful. And that's where responsibility rises to the third floor. If on the personal level it says, I bear the consequences, and in relationships it says, you can count on me, then before life itself it declares, I will use the gift entrusted to me wisely. I remember a conversation with a 52-year-old man, successful by society's standards, but exhausted by the standards of the soul. Jim, he said, it's like I win every day but lose my life. I asked him, what in your calendar shouts about your calling? He went silent, because the calendar is always a mirror. Where our time goes, our devotion follows, and devotion is the currency of purpose. If you can't find even an hour for your dream for weeks, it's not a dream, it's a holiday wish. A calling isn't what we want to have, it's what we're willing to serve. It's fitting to recall the free throw line. Yes, Russell had training, talent, and a team, but he also had a duty to the game. Do you feel the difference? Playing well is about me. Serving the game is about something greater than me. Each of us has a game bigger than ourselves. Children were meant to raise, people were meant to teach, ideas were meant to voice, works that won't exist without us. And when we begin to serve something larger than comfort, our breathing changes. Discipline stops feeling like chains and turns into wings, because now every 6 a.m., wake up isn't self-punishment, it's loyalty to a mission. There's another trap, waiting for inspiration before living your calling. People joked with me, Jim, I'll start when the muse visits. I'd reply, muses visit those who open the door at the same hour every day. Responsibility toward life doesn't tolerate randomness. It thrives on routine, small rituals, and daily accounting. Write down 3 actions that advance your bigger purpose and do them before the noise of the day begins. It's a simple exercise, but you'll be amazed how quickly it puts you on a different trajectory. Some think a calling is fireworks. In truth, it's a candle that no wind of everyday life can blow out. People often ask me, how do I know this is truly my calling? Here are a few clues. First, a calling always demands that you become a greater person than you are now. If the task doesn't weigh on your shoulders, it's probably just a hobby. Second, a calling both delights and disciplines you. It brings joy, but it doesn't pamper laziness. Third, a calling nourishes others. If your work helps people breathe easier, think clearer, act braver, you're on the right path. Life rarely shouts, but it always hints. Look where your gifts meet someone else's need, and there you'll find your road. Of course, doubts will come. They'll visit at night when you're reviewing bills. They'll come by day when someone rolls their eyes at your dream. And that's when responsibility toward life whispers, stay the course. Like a ship in fog, guided by its compass, not the mood of the waves. You're not obliged to meet everyone's expectations, but you are obliged to answer the call of your purpose. Because if you don't, the world will lose something one of a kind, your contribution. Here's one more thought, simple but crucial. Don't wait for a big stage to start serving a big cause. Start quietly on the sidelines. Write 1 page, teach 1 person, prepare 1 speech, make 1 call, walk 1 mile. Why does it work? Because life rewards not loud declarations, but quiet consistency, small, faithful actions. Those are the invisible shots that keep your hand steady when the decisive moment comes. And don't be afraid to redraw your route. Responsibility toward life isn't cement, it's conscience. It doesn't chain you to past choices. It keeps asking, is this still leading where you're called to go? If not, adjust. The courage to change course is also responsibility. There's nothing worse than loyalty to a direction that leads nowhere. One day your life too will narrow to 12 seconds. The phone will ring with a new opportunity. A child will ask a question that may shape their path. A room will fall silent before you step on stage. And everything you've done up to that moment, the journals, the early mornings, the small faithful acts will compress into a single motion. You'll lift the ball of your calling and take the shot. And no matter what the statistics say, character will answer for you. Now we're arriving at the practical part. Soon we'll make 5 measurements of responsibility. Brief but precise. on a scale of 1 to 10. They'll help you see where you already keep your word to yourself, to others, and to life, and where you're still hiding behind beautiful explanations. After that, you'll receive a simple daily framework that will make your days work for your mission, not against it. And if you're ready, we'll begin now, because responsibility loves action, and action loves today. And now we move on to the most important part, you. Let's do a small, real-time reality check together right now during the video. Don't pause, don't search for perfect words. Just answer internally, quickly, honestly, without sugarcoating. Rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 means I almost never do this, and 10 means I do it consistently, even when it's hard. Ready? Let's begin. Question 1. How often do I take responsibility for making the first move when everyone else is waiting for someone else? Picture the starting whistle and an empty track ahead of you. Do I spring from the blocks, or do I look around? If your answer is low, don't beat yourself up. Just note it. This is your compass for the week. Question 2. How reliable am I for the 3 closest people in my life? Imagine a bridge over a river of needs. Can it bear the weight of their expectations? If it's wobbly, that's not a sentence. It's a repair point. Rate yourself from 1 to 10 and immediately name 1 person in your mind to whom you'll prove your trustworthiness with action today. Question 3. How much does my schedule serve my calling rather than random demands of the day? Picture your calendar as a garden. More weeds or more flowers? 5 minutes of pruning can change the whole landscape. Give it a number, and then feel into which 1 hour you'll block off this week for your bigger work. Question 4. How consistently do I keep discipline when emotions drop? Think of a metronome. It keeps time through rain and sun. Is my rhythm set by a schedule or by mood? Give it a score, and recall 1 small habit you'll complete today, even if you're low on energy. Question 5. How quickly do I admit a mistake and correct it with concrete action? Picture a tear in the fabric of a relationship. Do I pick up the needle right away or push the rip under the rug? Give an honest score and choose 1 micro action today to restore trust. Don't stop. Keep moving with me. This rhythm matters more than perfect answers. Now, a soft request from me. If these questions stirred something meaningful inside you, subscribe to the channel and hit like, not for the numbers, but so the algorithm brings you less noise and more meaningful shots for the mind. And here's 1 small act of reciprocity. Drop a comment with the phrase, "My shot this week is," and name the 1 action you'll take first. Let others see your example and be inspired. Now, a simple daily framework, as straightforward as a free throw line. I call it 3 to 2 to 1. 3 promises in the morning, 1 to yourself, 1 to a person, 1 to your mission. 2 check-ins during the day. At midday, ask, "Am I still on course?" In the evening, ask, "What from today should I repeat tomorrow?" 1 journal entry at night, 1 paragraph about where I showed up with responsibility and where I hid behind excuses. Trust me, this humble ritual puts the wheel of your life back in your hands within a week. Here's another tool, especially useful when you feel worn out: the half-step rule. If you can't manage an hour workout, and do 30 minutes. If you can't make 10 calls, do 5. If the big chapter won't come, write 1 paragraph. Responsibility loves momentum, and momentum hates ultimatums. Half a step protects your pace and your self-worth when your battery's low. Another short habit for those leading a team or family: each morning complete the sentence, "Today everyone will get from me." And finish it with specifics: clarity, calm, decisions, support. It's an invisible but tangible bonus to trust. And don't try to be a hero every minute. Being a pillar in the decisive moments is enough. Now that you've rated yourself, don't try to fix everything at once. Choose 1 area with the lowest numbers and take 1 action that will raise it by just 1 point. Not 5, not 10, just 1. Remember how a shot is trained, not through noise, but through repetition. 1 last ask. In the comments, share which of the 5 questions hit the hardest and what action you'll take today. I read them, and when I can, I reply. And if this format works for you, hit subscribe. We'll keep building the muscle of responsibility together, rhythmically, without hype, with respect for your time. And 1 final thing for today. Don't pause the video to think properly. Think on the move. Live these questions through your actions today, and revisit them in your journal tonight, because that's where the depth arrives, in silence. You'll be surprised how quickly your inner posture aligns when your words begin to match your actions. Because responsibility isn't a speech, it's a rhythm, and rhythm makes the music of your life. And now when the game is over, when the final whistle blows and the crowd slowly disperses, you're left alone on the court. No noise, no applause, just you and the feeling inside, I took my shot. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe it wasn't as graceful as someone else's, but it was honest. And that honesty, that's the purest fuel for the soul. Because in the end, my friends, life itself is a game, one where each of us stands on our own free throw line. Every single day, sometimes under bright lights, sometimes in darkness where no one sees. But the question is always the same. Will you lift the ball? Will you make your move, even when your hands tremble? Will you step into that pressure when your heart says, I'm scared, and your spirit replies, do it? Here's what I've learned. Responsibility isn't something forced upon us. It's something we choose. It's an act of inner freedom. Because the one who takes responsibility stops being a victim of circumstances and becomes the author of their own story. And even if the chapters differ, success, failure, change, the handwriting always reads the same. I am responsible. I remember once writing a line in my journal, true maturity begins the moment you stop waiting for a hero and decide to become one. Not for applause, not for fame, but simply because it's the right thing to do. Because your world, your family, your team, your story doesn't need you perfect. It needs you present, reliable, responsible. And if you ever doubt whether it's worth taking that step forward, just remember Bill Russell, a man who didn't wait for perfect conditions, didn't wait for the right moment, didn't rely on statistics. He simply stepped up, took the ball, and made his shot because someone had to. And that's what made him a legend. Not the points, not the trophies, but the ability in the decisive moment to say, give me the ball. That's the whole formula of life, my friends. If you want to change your day, take responsibility for the first hour. If you want to change your year, you take responsibility for one habit. If you want to change your life, take responsibility for your mission. Because destiny doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who are ready to step to the line when everyone else looks away. And if you're hearing these words today, perhaps life itself has just placed the ball in your hands. The only question left is, are you ready to take your shot? So when you wake up tomorrow, remember, the arena is already open, you are on the court, and the only whistle that truly matters is the one that sounds inside you. Make your move, take the game into your hands, and let responsibility be the first chapter in your textbook of greatness, because as Churchill once said, responsibility is the price of greatness. And in my view, that's the best investment you'll ever make.